Our government has gone way overboard in the amount of power that it gets. Now it's allowing itself to be able to take away our God-given rights. And if they can do that to Cliven Bundy, then they can do that to anyone.
Haley, you are wise beyond your years, and you clearly have a good mother, and she's doing a good thing. So now the Bureau of Land Management, that's supposed to just manage bushes and chickens and cows, has a security and intelligence.
Did you say Bureau of Land Management? You're falling for it, Enoch. It is the Bureau of Land Mafia.
The Bureau of Land Mafia now has an intelligence division. There's this whole move to change our federal system to this regional government system.
It's important for people to understand the role of the bureaucrat. They are unconstitutional, but they are also the untouchable class.
It's a Thought Police free zone. The Liberty Lineup radio show, where independent thought just can't be bought.
I'm an American. Red, white, and blue. And I'm a citizen of this world and of heaven. Some things were meant to be together. I believe in faith and freedom. Got a country too. I believe with faith and freedom, we're gonna make it through. Come on!
Welcome to the Thursday segment of the Liberty Lineup Show. This is Thursday, The Naked Truth, with Enoch Moore and Jared Green today. Today we will be talking about all kinds of things, talking about our Patriots, talking about Homeschool Liberty Activist Club, and we'll be taking your calls. Stay tuned.
We gotta rise up. We gotta stay strong.
You can listen to the Liberty Lineup online by downloading the K-Talk radio app to your smartphone or at k-talk.com. Great reception wherever you are. Become part of our grassroots movement by signing up at libertylineup.com, where you can also support the cause of liberty. Help us spread liberty around the world. We'd like to thank our show sponsor, Patriot Mobile, the only cell phone service that gives you the peace of mind that your monthly bills are supporting only conservative candidates and causes of your choice, including this show. Call 877-367-7524 and be among the first 10 callers during this show today, and you'll get a special offer. Just mention the Liberty Lineup radio show. Call now, 877-367-7524. That's 877-367-7524. For more information, go to patriotmobile.com. And again, this is Enoch Moore and Jared Green.
Enoch, I think one big story is the fact that the Millard County Sheriff, Robert Decker, is acting like a member of the Utah State Legislature. He is crawling, he is asking, he's got his hand out. Maybe he's in the fetal position begging for custody of a man the FBI picked up in his jurisdiction and hauled away to jail. Did you know Davey passed a kidney stone in the comforts and coziness of solitary confinement the other night?
Yeah, he's sick in jail, and they're completely ignoring any treatment.
Well, he passed the kidney stone, and they've been transferred to the Nevada Southern Detention Facility, which I visit. I went and saw all those guys down there a few weeks ago. I guess he's feeling better. I've never passed a kidney stone, but I hear it'll make men cry and make anybody. And yeah, they couldn't take him to the hospital. They certainly couldn't release him on his own. They couldn't let him go. You know, he might run away with that kidney stone in his gut and start a revolution somewhere. His big crime was taking pictures of federal bureaucrats rounding up his cows.
Just taking photos. And they knew they had nothing on him when they first took him in. That's why they let him go the first time.
That's right. After they put his face in the dirt, they let him go. They've got nothing to hold him on. But obviously, at this point, they're holding these guys because they're sending a message. They're sending a message to ranchers like Stanton Gleave up in Stanton Gleave and the rest, you know. I mean, courage is contagious. This renaissance had to be put down out in Oregon. That's why Lavoie was killed. Stop the virus.
The virus was spreading. Stop freedom. That's right.
Yeah, that's what's happened. And the same corrupt people are involved. Greg Bretzing used to be part of the Salt Lake FBI.
Greg Bretzing just seems to, when you look into his name, he just seems to pop up in a lot of scandals over time.
As does Daniel Love, who now has an office in Salt Lake, by the way. He just got a promotion.
In fact, they created a new office just for him. They created this new, so in response to, likely I would say, in response to everything that's happened, they've created a new security intelligence arm of the BLM. So now the Bureau of Land Management, that's supposed to just manage bushes and chickens and cows, has a security and intelligence.
Did you say Bureau of Land Management? You're falling for it, Enoch. A caller had it right last week. It is the Bureau of Land Mafia.
The Bureau of Land Mafia now has an intelligence division. So this is they're just getting their own CIA, NSA. What are they going to have next, right?
Well, yeah. Now Mr. Love is in charge of security. He's in charge of protection of all the BLM facilities. He's in charge of intelligence. So I suppose secret spies will be out there amongst us. Maybe people posing as ranchers trying to start the next rebellion. All with your tax dollars, by the way, made available by Jason Chaffetz, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, the brave patriot that nobody remembers, Silent Chris Stewart. I was talking to some people in church last week. They forgot who Chris Stewart is because Utah added the 4th district, and people weren't used to knowing who their reps were anyway. So when you throw in another one, it's totally new frontier. And they forgot we had 4 congressmen.
We have 4 Senate districts in Utah. When was that added, by the way? 4th Senate district was created
2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago?
4 years ago. 4 years ago. I think he's been there 4 years. He's running for a re-election this time, which is why he's banging the drum against defunding government bureaucracies, and that's what the sheeple want to hear. They want someone to tell them it's going to be all right.
Let's talk about that for a second. Defunding. So Jason Chaffetz and several others in Congress are kind of playing the hero card right now, saying we're going to defund the BLM. Okay.
Troy Gowdy's my favorite superhero. He's my favorite. I mean, he talks. He's almost as good as Jason Dukakis with what he says, and people suck it up. I don't know if it's the hairdo or what. They think this guy is John Wayne. It's delusion, Enoch. People see what they want to see. They want to see that there's an easy fix. They want to see that they want someone to preach to them.
Like it's easy. You want someone to preach to you. So
yeah, they do.
So they're saying we're going to defund the BLM, and this is so exciting, and they're running articles and headlines about how they're stopping the BLM, and people online are sharing it, going right on and take down the BLM, and they think that there's this hero thing going on, but this is not what's going on. There was the chances that they are doing the right thing most of the time is just from experience, it's just starting to seem less and less. Because when you start looking into these things, you realize, oh, no, that was just the headline, right? There's this whole move to change our federal system, which is already an overreach, and we know there are problems there, to this regional government system. The New American ran an article recently where the Council on Foreign Relations was promoting, hey, the United States should adopt the regional style management of China. So in the New American, they published this. So it is officially been published by the Council on Foreign Relations now that they are promoting a regional idea of management for the United States. So if that's the case, then yes, everything federal that currently falls under a constitution, whether they follow it or not, at least on paper, it's supposed to fall under the Constitution. But when they move to these regional groups in the United States, then they're not going to fall under anyone's jurisdiction except for the new bureaucracies, whatever they want to say. So when you move the BLM to a regional DLM, Department of Land Management, that falls under the new regional land compact that Ken Ivory has been pushing, you now have less accountability in a regional government that's unaccountable, and this is Soviet communist governance.
Yes. Bureaucrat. It's important for people to understand the role of the bureaucrat. They are unconstitutional, but they are also the untouchable class. This is like Al Capone, like the IRS is Al Capone with a nicer suit and a piece of paper that says they're legal. Back to the judge. Now, this is interesting. Davy Bundy, very mellow dude. Again, taking pictures, got in trouble. 2 years ago, he took the pictures, and now, couple months ago, all of a sudden, the FBI realizes, wow, this domestic terrorist has been out on the loose for 2 years, stemming from the Nevada standoff. We got to go pick him up. It's been 2 years. What has he done? So 18 blacked-out Suburbans roll up to his house in Delta and drag him off the ladder. You know, he was going up to the roof.
They threw smoke bombs.
Why not?
They were, in his wife's words, it was like a video game to them.
Well, it is.
Right, surrounding and using all their big, expensive military hardware, and also they can just walk up and handcuff him and walk him away.
Yes. But the bureaucrat, now this takes me back to this judge that recently denied Davy Bundy's release. Again, he's the guy with the kidney stone. Can't let him out. But Judge Cam Fehrenbach in Las Vegas said Davy couldn't go, but he read his statement. He read it. I don't know if that... He read his statement denying Davy's release, which means that statement was pre-written. This is a show hearing. They've already decided to keep this guy locked up because he is a Bundy. And the judge proved it by reading the statement. But I did some research on this judge, Enoch. He's not always a total scumbag. I'm thinking this guy has a dagger in his back. Because 2 years ago, he went head-to-head with the ATF in his courtroom. The ATF tried to Randy Weaver a guy, a motorcycle gang member down in Las Vegas. The ATF tried to Randy Weaver this guy by setting up this old biker dude to sell them an illegal gun. And he says, no, I don't do that anymore. Then they tried to have the guy sell him some dope. He says, look, I don't do that anymore. It's been years. I got out of that. I'm not doing it. Well, they set this guy up. He appeared in court before Judge Cam Fehrenbach. The judge, maybe we could get him on the air, he was wise to the ATF MO, so he dismissed the case. He knew what they'd been up to. He chastised this bureaucrat. In his 34-page decision, he knew that the ATF had deployed techniques that created a crime where there was no crime. So he dismissed the drug charge, and he chastised the bureaucrat but what happens to the bureaucrat? Nothing. The judge said, you guys made this up. You falsified evidence.
That's criminal conspiracy.
It is. But the bureaucrat is the untouchable class. They are untouchable. So what are you going to do? Who are you going to call? Loretta Lynch? Sean Reyes? That's what you're looking at, ladies and gentlemen.
So this judge, when you researched him, you found some good things he was doing.
I think really Judge Cam Fehrenbach has a dagger in his back. He's not always a total player for the federal government.
Because this good case you found that showed him really going out of his way to do the right thing doesn't match.
Not at all.
What he seems to have done now with
Not
Dave
at
Bundy.
all. This article I'm reading from the Review Journal shows that this guy does have some principles once in a while. Most of America wouldn't care if the judge threw a Vagos biker gang member in jail. Nobody would think about him twice. The good Christians would never go and see him. Nobody would care. But here you have a construction worker and rancher from Utah being scooped up. Oh, and I guess we're up on break, so stick with us. 801-254-5855. Back with the rest of this story.
This is Enoch Moore and Jared Green with defendingutah.org, and this is the Naked Truth segment of the Liberty Lineup radio show on AM630K-Talk.com. For more information, go to our Facebook page, the Liberty Lineup radio show. and the Defending Utah page. Like and share. After the break, we'll be back with more about the Patriots and the ranchers and the judges and the lawyers and all of that. Stay tuned.
Spend his life living off the land. Steady hand and a clean soul. It breaks his heart seeing thorns.
Spending life living off the land. That's not really much we know about today with our suburban lifestyle and our city folk.
Yes, and they plan on destroying the rest of it.
They plan on destroying the rest of it. Well,
more monuments, more Agenda 21, bird refuge, like that bird refuge up in Oregon. That started out as an Indian reservation with no Indians back during Teddy Roosevelt's day.
We need to reconnect with the land. Well, this is Enoch Moore and Jared Green, and we are back on K-Talk Radio, AM 630, K-Talk.com with the Liberty Lineup Naked Truth segment. We'd like to thank our segment sponsor, Medical Cost Share, the opt-out from Obamacare, better prices and no ACA tax or penalties. It's not insurance, it's better. MedicalCostShare.com/opt-out now. Join our grassroots network and get our updates and alerts and support the cause of liberty at LibertyLineup.com. That's LibertyLineup.com. You can also like and share our Facebook page, the Liberty Lineup Radio Show. We are chatting with ourselves in the studio at the moment. We're talking about our patriots and our ranchers and those who are actually standing up defending our liberty. You know, it is the ranchers who own the land and who own the allotments, and they are the ones who are in the prime position to actually defend this nation from tyranny because they are the owners and they have the natural right to defend that property which they own. And so we really need to understand our ranchers and what they're going through and their history and realize the position they're in and support them.
Well, they're on an endangered species hit list, Enoch. Cliven Bundy was the last rancher in Clark County, Nevada. 51 other families, mostly LDS, driven off the land over the last 40, 50 years. Everybody that played with the BLM is now out of the business. That's a huge lesson.
The one last rancher standing. If you are not familiar with all this, or you've been hearing just about the ranchers and everything going on in the media, but you don't really get it, pick up the book Last Rancher Standing by Shauna Cox and hear the story.
Who's also looking at prison time, but she is currently out wearing an ankle bracelet. One of these days we'll have to talk about why certain people were let out and the rest weren't.
There's a lot of fascinating stories.
There's a lot, and some of it, I think, goes back to the VA. Anyway, back to this Nevada judge, Cam Fehrenbach. I think he's got a dagger in his back. This U.S. magistrate is not always a total tool for the feds in Washington. 2 years ago, he dismissed the ATF case against a Vagos biker gang member because he knew the ATF had cooked the books, cooked the evidence, tried to Randy Weaver the guy, and he saw right through it, so he chastised the bureaucrat and dismissed the case. But what happened to the bureaucrat? He probably got promoted. That's what happens.
Like
Daniel
Dan
P.
Love.
Love. Yay, sir! And he's got an office here in Utah now. And I'm sure all the good little Republicans up in the legislature are completely ignoring that fact, like they're ignoring everybody that asks them to do their job in standing up for Utahns that have been kidnapped. All we want is due process. They want their day in court. That was denied, meaning they wanted a speedy trial. Of course, they want to post bond and go home to their families.
Which they're constitutionally guaranteed a speedy trial.
Obama has let, and the Republicans, because they are his party, they've let 86,000 illegal aliens, rapists, murderers. 200 of these guys are murderers committing homicide. They let them go. But these ranchers can't go home to their families. So I think this judge has a dagger in his back because he doesn't always act like this. What are your thoughts, if you care?
801.
Bring it up.
801-254-5855.
I talked to Millard County Sheriff Deputy Captain Jacobson, and nice guy. We had a pleasant conversation. We agreed on a few things. to their credit, they're asking. I mean, they're like in the fetal position. The Sheriff Decker from Millard County said to the judge, "Well, if you let Davey go, I'll take him into custody and I'll make sure he shows up to his hearings." And of course, that was denied. The judge read his statement, which meant it was written previously, so this was just a show. He has his orders. What the sheriff should have done is kept Davey from being arrested to begin with. Or what if the sheriff and the deputies went down to Nevada in uniform, stood outside the jail, and yelled with the protesters? Or what if they went in the jail and said, "Hey, how about my people? Hand them over." Make their own YouTube videos of it. And they invited other sheriffs to do that. I told Captain Jacobson and another person that was interviewing him, you guys have a little more social authority than the average person because of that badge you wear. That badge represents the law. You are the law enforcement officer.
I would even say they have the power they have. It's not even more than the people. It was derived from the people, right? As they gave it to them with their consent.
We hired you.
We hired you, and so you're acting on behalf of the people, including on behalf of Dave Bundy. The sheriff should have acted on behalf of Dave Bundy, and not allowed this happen. Do we need to review some first constitutional principles here? Do we understand why the sheriff had a duty to not allow the arrest of Dave Bundy in his county?
One guy I was talking to offered the sheriff's department. He said, "Look, I'll rent a bunch of Suburbans. I'll buy you guys pizza. We'll all drive down there for the day." I think Delta can get by without its cops for an afternoon.
I think they would get by better most places.
Yeah. So you had 18 blacked out Suburbans roll up, scoop up a Utah citizen. Kim Fitzpatrick Coleman at the Capitol. She barely, she made the top 10 list for the Freedom Index, whatever, but all these politicians, I'm not buying it. They're all zeros. They don't do anything. They don't care. They're begging Obama to clarify what bathrooms mean.
Right, and the things that actually matter, the things that they should be taking care of, they're not. It says that they're completely apathetic and turning a blind eye to the most important things.
Completely. They forsake their oath. They forsake their love for their fellow man. They forsake their responsibility while collecting a very handsome paycheck and benefits package, I might add.
Shall we take a call, see what this guy has to say?
Do it.
Okay, we don't have a call screener today, so we're just going to take you right on the air. Caller line 3, you're on the air with the Liberty Lineup Naked Truth. What's your name?
Hi, this is Hunter. I've been following this case myself for a while, and it brings to mind a talk I heard from Cleon Scalza back in 1999, and he talks about the next 25 years.
Oh, I've seen that. Yep.
You remember that?
Yep. Keep going.
And how the dictators, you have a first dictator that comes up out of the sea, out of Revelations. I guess it was the North Atlantic Treaty, and then the second dictator is, well, I think it's this president that we have right now. When he declares war upon the saints, then the God declares war upon the wicked or the government or everybody else that's against the saints. And I think these men that are up there, for the most part, are LDS. But, I mean, they kill an innocent man, LaVoy Finnegan.
I wholeheartedly agree.
And the Mormons are largely silent.
War upon the saints. In 1980, Bruce R. McConkie said, "The day will come when the jails of Carthage will be opened again and shall enclose the innocent." And I'll tell you that has happened now with all these good saints that were simply trying to do the right thing.
They were doing what they were commanded.
To defend the
how
Constitution.
many people get put in jail for teaching the Constitution?
Right. Teaching about liberty, teaching the gospel. The gospel is liberty. Liberty is the gospel. Latter-day Saints, the Constitution is part of our faith.
And how many of the Mormon legislators up at the Capitol care? Name one. Give me one. Where is that phony Michael Lee?
Yeah,
Where is that phony Jason Dukakis? Oh, I mean Chaffetz. His daddy's Dukakis. Sorry, a little slip. Where are these people? Gone. Nowhere.
They're not doing anything about it.
Crickets. That's all you can do.
Kingmen, modern day kingmen.
They're kingmen. Kingmen and
Conspirators, gypsies, tramps, and thieves, whatever. They're no good.
Yeah. Well, I expect the earthquakes to start next year, so.
well, who knows? Yeah, we'll see. I was wondering when those are going to start. There's always they're coming and then they're not coming and they're coming and they're not coming.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out how to tell the pattern of when it actually is coming yet.
Yeah, well, I'd say this is a sure sign right here, putting them in jail for no reason.
Right.
So.
Just spare my house, Lord, please.
Yeah, well, start here, unfortunately, and spread from here.
And that's part of LDS scripture that God's going to clean house first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
Does
probably
that
needs
bother anybody? I mean, do they ever? They don't read, I guess.
Well, I think I got on Senator Lee's bad list because I listened to those little town meetings he has, on the telephone, and I asked my question. Oh yeah, we'll get to you. It never did get to me, and so then I left the question, and my phone number, my email address, everything, nothing. And it was my question was pretty simple. It was just about the fact that all the tax bills should start in Congress, and the Obama health care that started in the Senate. So legally, they could just shelve the whole thing.
They could do something. Supposedly, we have a Republican majority, and
It's Obama's party.
The Speaker of the House could do that. One vote, and I haven't heard one word back.
No. And Mike Lee has the phone numbers for these families involved, hand-delivered. He has their phone numbers. He could call Brianna Bundy.
Mm-hmm.
He could call any of these people. He could call Shauna Cox. He has their numbers. And he chooses to do nothing because he doesn't need to do anything. He already has the vote. Bah.
Yeah.
Bah.
Well,
all right, thanks for
you
calling.
guys talk today. May the force be with you.
We hope the force is with us.
Thank you,
thanks
Hunter.
for calling. Call anytime.
Now, what the Utah legislature is doing, they're joining with 10 states, mostly Republican. This is a Republican charge, and they're suing the Obama administration because Caesar has declared that anybody can use whatever bathroom they want. Yeah. Now, in my house, I think I own the bathroom, and anyone can use it. When someone comes over...
For now, you own the bathroom until some Agenda 21 regulation comes in and says you can't flush it more than twice a day to conserve water. We'll see that one coming. In fact, I might have just given some Agenda 21 bureaucrat an idea.
Well, that's you don't really own anything. You'll always have to have a job, thanks to the Utah legislature and the property taxes. You'll always have to have a job to pay for the shack you live in. Not to be negative, but am I wrong?
So you can't. You're saying you can't just get some property, work for it, be done paying for it, and now you own it. That's what you're saying.
No. It's always a rent to own, and you never get there.
Even when you pay it off, you're still paying rent to the government.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yes, and they'll cook up other reasons to tax you and take your money as long as you let them. Now, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, West Virginia, they're all suing the Obama administration, and Sean Reyes is leading the charge. We want clarification. See, the lawyers are very glad to sue the federal government using your money. How patriotic and brave of Gary Herbert and his cohorts.
For their 10% fee of that $50 million settlement.
The lawyers love their craft. It's good for business. We're going to settle this using the law, but we're going to use your tax money to do it. And the dupes say, okay, thank you.
The Book of Mormon taught us the pattern of how these lawyers work. They rile people up to contention with one another and charge a fee for their services to resolve the problem.
And you certainly see that, don't you? Well, the real story is the fact that Utahns and Americans from all over have been kidnapped. Social media, the babes on Fox, the KSL conspirators, they've got us talking about bathrooms. They've got us talking about trans. Back in the 80s, if you said the word trans, you thought it was a really nice car. My dad had one, but how things change.
Or just
801
short for transmission. We've got some more calls. Should we try another call?
You betcha.
Caller, you're live on the air with the Liberty Lineup Naked Truth. What's your name?
Paul.
Paul?
Go ahead, sir. Speak to the world.
Okay. Did you hear about that he's a government officer and he lived in New York and he committed suicide the note he left?
You're talking about the alleged ICE agent?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's confirmed that he was an ICE agent, and he really did kill himself. But anyway, in his letter, he says they're going to use the upcoming economic collapse to execute the political prisoners.
Oh, that's interesting.
I didn't notice that.
Well, you don't want a good crisis to go to waste.
Well, I would like to just my thought on economic collapse is we've been on the verge of it for 30 years.
100 years.
And so I don't know when the hype is actually a legitimate lead. It seems like there's a pattern of always feeding us in the media misinformation about it's coming next month. It's coming next month. So while I'm aware it's coming, I hope it's not coming soon and that they're not going to do that.
The government is propping it up.
Oh, sure.
I mean, every time gold prices go up, they dump $2 billion worth of paper gold into it to bring them back down.
So,
they go up again.
Paul, in your opinion, is a total economic collapse, what does that look like? Is that the Weimar Republic or just more people out of work?
Venezuela.
Okay, good.
Like a Venezuela style, which is they've gone through
But I really hope it doesn't get that bad. But the more they manipulate it, the harder it's going to spring when it finally goes.
Well, Paul, you know why I'm proud to be an American?
Why is that, sir?
My paper money's worth more than Venezuela's paper money.
Okay, we're running off the break, so we're gonna have to finish this out right after the break. This is the Liberty Lineup Naked Truth with Jared Green and Enoch Moore, and we'll be right back. More talk about the Patriots. This is Enoch Moore and Jared Green from defendingutah.org, and we are back on K-Talk Radio, AM 630k-talk.com with the Liberty Lineup Naked Truth segment. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Patriot Mobile, and please join our grassroots network to get our updates and alerts. Just go to libertylineup.com or defendingutah.org. Sign up and support the cause of liberty. That's libertylineup.com. You can also like and share our Facebook page, the Liberty Lineup Radio Show. And we are having some good conversation and having some good calls talking about our patriots and those who are standing up and defending liberty in this country, and even those who have died defending our freedom, such as Lavoy Finicum.
This is the best audience in the United States. The K-Talk audience is several cuts above the average listener. Truly, we thank you for tuning in every day and all over the world. I worked at Clear Channel. I've worked at KSL. I see the other people that participate in this medium and pray that it never goes away. But the talk radio audience that follows K-Talk, they are completely different than the average Joe.
Well, we are lucky to have them. We've got a couple callers. We have Chris on line 3. Chris, are you there?
So I might recommend you change the name of your show to More Green, but that might not pass as a conservative talk show. They might misconstrue that. But
More and Green, right?
Yeah. So I guess you do have a very diverse audience. You're talking to a conservative crossdresser. I am currently dressed like a girl, so let me describe my attire. I've got a pair of Levi blue jeans, faded, a T-shirt, and a baseball cap, just like most girls running around today. So I guess I've decided if I can't beat them, I might as well join them, right?
You might have more fun doing that too, Chris.
So yeah, you talked earlier about not letting crises go to waste. And on a little more of a serious note, by the way, I was able to get through to Alex Jones on Monday.
Oh,
it was a tough, and I will share with you what I shared with him about the upcoming financial crisis. And I won't tell you how to get to it because it's kind of hard. But I do believe that we are limping along. The powers that be, the financial interests that pretty much run the economy, it's all they can do right now, gentlemen, to keep this economy limping along. They want to make sure that Obama has a strong legacy, and if things improve that much, he won't, because we are not in a strong economy. But just like anything else, if you contrast it with something that's even worse, then it looks as if, just like the person that wins last place in an ugly contest, suddenly he doesn't think he's ugly anymore, right?
Right.
But to get to my point, what I predict is that we will have economic troubles, and that's precisely why they want Mr. Trump to get into office as our next president, and they don't fear that. First of all, he will be completely and totally incapable of creating any change because of the established infrastructure that the globalists have created.
I don't think they're afraid of any of them. They're happy with whoever. They may have a few personal favorites, but I think it's. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I mean, the system is corrupted, and you cannot work within the system to reform the system because the system is the problem. Right.
And by working within the system, you're trying to legitimize the system.
That's what LaVoy said.
Okay, so and because Trump represents, now I don't buy into him. I think he's a fraud because he represents so much of what America was, and a lot of people are buying into that false facade. They want him to represent traditional constitutional American values, and then they're going to pull the plug on the economy or just, basically let it fall under its own way. That's all they have to do. And then they're going to see, and then we're going to, we will most likely still have our Republican Congress intact. And who are they going to blame this on? There are no Democrats in charge, right?
So what you're saying is they'll collapse the economy, blame it on the Republicans and capitalism, paving the way for a new socialist order, which 1/3 of BYU students will be happy to join.
Exactly, but it's a little more nuanced than that. Yeah, half of BYU, I noticed that they are Bernie support. A lot of them are Bernie supporters.
Boy, it's crazy, man. I don't know who's in charge down there at the Y, but it's not God.
Yeah, and it's certainly not Ezra Taft Benson at the helm like it once was. But it's a little more nuanced, and you hear people like Lindbeck. I tuned into his show briefly just to kind of see what not to do in life, because pretty much everything he recommends to do, I do the opposite. And they are really getting down on Trump, and it all makes sense. I'm putting all these pieces together. The mainstream Republicans are distancing themselves because they get a sense, whether they know consciously or subconsciously, that they're going to pull the plug on this man. So they want to make sure and distance themselves as much as possible so that they can still play a role in the future socialist regime that's coming. Order, yes. Yeah. I'm looking for a really good word to describe it. Paradise is the word I was looking for.
Utopia. Chris,
because
great insights, man. Great insights.
I've been saying it for 7 years. It's a gut feeling, and the pieces are falling together. I just thought I'd run that by you guys, see what you thought about that theory.
Well, I think it's a theory, and I've got my own theory, and that any of them might play out at the end of the day. I've been following theories long enough now that there are so many of them, they can't all work out, and I don't know which one will end up happening. How's that?
But here's why I think this one, and you got to think like the adversary. You really do, gentlemen. And that's the problem with most good-hearted people, claim to be Republicans or whatever. They're as harmless as doves, but never as wise as serpents. And that's our problem. Because Satan, what he does is he creates expectations that he always disappoints us on, those expectations. And there's this expectation that finally we might be restored to a constitutional republic under a man who finally gets it. But if you do enough research on Trump, he really hasn't been in the past supportive of constitutional principles. And to me, it's an obvious scenario.
No.
He doesn't know a thing about it.
He doesn't care. He's a chameleon. Anyway, I've been long enough. I'll let some other guys get on. So I thought I'd let you chew on that for a while, maybe make some commentary on that.
Sure, Chris. Appreciate it. Thanks for the call.
All right, guys. Hey, you're doing a great job, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely have my own thoughts on economic collapse. And so what he's saying there was kind of fascinating. First of all, caller, hold on the line. We'll get to you in a second on line 4 there. But we have a lot of talk about economic collapse, and a lot of people capitalize on it. I remember 2011, Stansberry Investments was like, everything is going to change this year, you know, and I've been following this for so long, and everyone's always got the next collapse prediction, and I take them all with a grain of salt. However, I do understand the reality of our system and economic bubbles, and there will continually be ups and downs, and eventually a major collapse. That's an eventual mathematical reality, especially as, you know, the dollar is weakened, and, you know, the petrodollar gets threatened, and, you know, so we're no longer a black gold backed currency, but, you know, so it's an eventual reality. Sometimes I feel like the doomsdayers that are saying it's just around the corner, that just gets you out of the fight, out of the need to defend liberty, because you're like, it's all over anyway. So I'm always cautious for that reason. But I'll tell you the one reason why, what I see with economic collapse. Agenda 21 talks all about economic prosperity at the same time that they're talking about all this other stuff. And they are heavily investing in certain industries, the government is, and they're investing in Common Core to do this workforce training of assigning your children to a job when they're done. So there seems to be a specific subset of industries that they're planning. This is Marxist planning. Okay, they're planning a future economy where certain industries and certain connected businessmen will get workers through the public education system, and so there will be a group of people that will be very prosperous. So even if there's an economic collapse, because they're planning this managed economy, Soviet style, well, it's a mix of Soviet and capitalism, because they've learned some lessons from the collapse of the Soviet Union, and in the past that they've kind of mixed capitalism, sort of like they do in China. There's some capitalism mixed with their communism, and so I think that there will be a collapse, but there will be certain industries propped up to prosper. That's kind of my gut feeling, but who knows how it's all going to play out. John on line 4, he wants to talk about Agenda 21, and he's not afraid. John, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks, man. You know, really quickly, you were just talking about how they're going to teach your kids to do stuff and then give them a job at the very end. It sounds a lot like what I went through in the military. You take the ASVAB, whatever you score determines what you can get.
Right.
And then
yeah,
you go and you get trained for that. Anyway, you know, the whole flushing your toilet two times a day mandate, and a friend of mine was saying this morning about basically carbon taxes, to where they're going to limit, or they're going to tax you by the average amounts of breaths you take a day, charging you for breathing.
If
I don't think it's going to get to that.
Well, if
I
they,
mean,
if they can find a way,
Go
they would like to. I would say that.
Oh, I'm sure they would. Yeah, but it would never happen. The reason Trump's popular is not because Trump is good, or he's the best choice, or he's the lesser of two evils, or whatever it is. It's because people are pissed off. They don't know why, and they don't pay attention enough to be able to actually have a good argument and be able to formulate, you know, or not formulate, but harness that anger into a beneficial and, you know, positive direction. But he's a sign of deterioration, and obviously, you know, look at Congress's approval ratings. You know, look at what when they poll people on if they trust the government, or if they think the government's going in the right direction. Nobody has faith in the government. Nobody. And once people start paying attention and actually sees, you know, they see what happens in other countries, like what was going on in Europe and has been going on in Europe for 3 years.
So people are angry, and they relate to an angry a guy who's angry, is what you're saying.
What?
People are angry, and so they relate to another guy who talks angry, like, I'm mad, I'm not going to take it anymore, and they're like, yeah, I kind of feel that way too. So that's what you're saying. It's that they're relating the feeling that they're seeing, and they can't articulate the reasoning behind it, so they just go with that feeling. Is that what did I hear you right?
Basically, yeah. I mean, and when, like I said, once people start paying attention to things that actually matter and not where people go to the bathroom, because, I mean, believe it or not, transgenders have been going to your bathroom for the longest time, and nobody cares. No one should care. If I'm standing there at a urinal and a dude in a dress comes in and stands at the urinal next to me,
Well, I grew up in California. I'm used to
I
that.
adhere to the man code. I don't talk. I don't look at you, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Who cares?
Yeah.
You're not going to check IDs at the door. You're not going to grab genitals. Oh, you got a package. You can't come in there or go in there.
Well, the
Who's
reason
gonna
they're
do
pushing
that?
this,
So why are we even talking about
the reason they're
because
pushing
we're distracted.
this, it would social change as well, social acceptance, changing the culture over time, right? That's Saul.
Well,
That's goes back to Saul Alinsky tactics.
It's
and
distraction. The real stories are buried. The real stories are buried, ignored,
Exactly. They're-
blacked out.
like
Exactly.
buddies.
They get us bickering about things that don't matter,
Right.
and we're not bickering at them for our taxation
There you
without
go.
Bingo.
representation.
Yep, you're right.
You know, the crappy crony capitalism that we have, where it's not healthcare that's bad, it's the companies that are bad.
And the guys that make it possible in Utah, the guys and gals, they live right down the street from you, listener.
Yep.
Your reps live real close to you. Look them up. Go to Who Represents Me in Utah, type in your address, boom, 2 mugshots will show up.
That's why people need to vote for a third party. Doesn't matter what third party it is.
Every time.
Do not vote Republican or Democrat. Finally get out from underneath your chains, people. Pay attention to things that are going on.
All right,
Stop talking
thanks,
about
John.
bathrooms. Anyway,
Appreciate the call. Call back anytime.
thanks, guys.
What do you think about that?
I don't know. What do you think about that? Hey, you know, that reminds me of the movie Dumbo. Hey,
Yeah,
now don't
yeah,
start that
Yeah,
again.
the birds sit there and they don't know what to think about it. Well, isn't that where we are? We're all up on our perch talking about, we talk, we don't act, we don't even make a phone call.
Special thanks to our show sponsor, Patriot Mobile, where your monthly bill goes to support this show and only conservative candidates and causes of your choice. PatriotMobile.com. Enoch Moore and Jared Green of DefendingUtah.org will be back next hour with a special guest who is leading a movement for homeschool liberty activism, and she's doing some really neat things. So stay tuned for more of the Liberty Lineup's Naked Truth segments right after the break and other breaking news. Welcome back to the second hour of the Naked Truth segment of the Liberty Lineup radio show, where we think right and wrong, not right and left, with DefendingUtah.org. And today we'll be talking with Amy, who has started a Liberty Activist homeschool club that has actually been doing some good things, and we'll take your calls.
We gotta stay strong, 'cause everything's on the line. We gotta rise up, we gotta stay strong, to save our way of life. I believe in faith and freedom, yeah.
And we are having some good conversation and some good calls today, talking about our patriots that are locked up in jail and our legislators that are turning a blind eye and not doing anything. The Arizona legislature, though, I read a passing headline that they actually passed some resolution. Darn, I wish I knew where that was. I'd look it up. But then people were saying, hey, why isn't Utah doing the same? And we're wondering the same question. We're talking about the sheriff, who seemed to shirk his constitutional responsibility to stand up to federal overreach, where there was no constitutionally enumerated power for Dave Bundy to even be arrested under the agency where it was. Anyway, we've had long conversations about that. And there are people who care. That's what we want to talk about now. Maybe the legislature doesn't care. Maybe the sheriffs haven't shown that they care yet. Maybe some of them will stand up. But there are a lot of people who care, and there are people who are concerned and who are trying to learn and study and understand, why is our system failing us, and how do we preserve original constitutional principles. I'll tell you what's important also is to teach this to our children. Are the public schools teaching this to our children? No, they are not. I just went to the end-of-year school program for my kid. They had this wonderful performance about the Founding Fathers and Paul Revere's ride. And what went through my mind, how many people don't know that Paul Revere was part of a committee of safety, and what a committee of safety is, and how people self-organized in order to be able to be effective against British tyranny. I'll tell you, I didn't even know that, though, until just a few months ago, understanding that. And so certainly that's not being taught here in the school. But also, then they sing this song. It sounds so wonderful seeing these kids singing these patriotic songs, and then they start singing about the virtues of democracy, and I'm just like, oh, facepalm. And everyone around me is still smiling how cute they are. And yes, they were still cute. They're still singing about these nice things, but there's false doctrine in the songs they're singing. So what do you do about that? We need to teach our children properly. And we have a guest now on the air. Her name is Amy. Amy, you are doing some wonderful things. Welcome to the show. Are you there? Wait, hold on, Amy. You're not on the air. I pushed the wrong button. Okay, Amy, now you're on the air.
Oh, great.
Oh,
Thanks for letting us be on. This is a pleasure. We really just admire what you guys do. And, I want to start out by saying I think that the takeaway that I want to leave everyone with is that this is for the average person. We're just average citizens. You don't have to feel like you need some degree in constitutional study. You don't have to necessarily feel like you have. You don't have to feel like you know what you're doing. You need to jump in there because this is about everybody.
Because none of us know what we're doing all the way. We're all trying to figure it out now because we thought our government officials know what they're doing. That's how I grew up thinking. If I choose to study that for my career, then I'll study that. And now we're all just, working to figure this out. And I love that you have a blog where you talk about some of this as well. LDS Keeping Our Covenants.
Yes, so they can go to ldskeepingourcovenant.wordpress.com/liberty-activist-club. It's kind of a generic name, Liberty Activist Club, but it's a work in progress, and this is actually led by the children. So it is a work in progress. If they rename it, then they may do that. But they lead that with our guidance, and they are being leaders. They're getting experience to be the voice of the people. Because, in the Book of Mormon, we read that the voice of the people, when the voice of the people desire wickedness, that's when they are ripe for destruction. So your voice matters, and not raising your voice in opposition amounts to complicit agreement. So if you're not raising your voice in opposition to things that you're hearing that you do disagree with, you're actually agreeing with what's happening. If you're not letting people know about it, if you're not raising your voice, then you're agreeing with it.
And that I've even read just in the last year Ensign articles that the church has published that talk about our need to be involved. And of course they're generic sometimes, and they don't tell you what to go do or how to go do it, but they talk about our need to be involved and have our voice heard. And boy, sometimes I wonder if am I the only one reading the Ensign as well? But I love how the position you're taking and what you put the children first. And so tell us more about the club and how that works, and is it open to other people and that kind of stuff? Tell us about that.
We would like to invite others to join with us, any like-minded people, or if you don't know what you're doing, we're going to be here for you and help you because we're learning as well, and we try to hold on to examples that we feel like defending Utah. We really look up to you guys, and we really appreciate what you guys are doing. And on that note, I just want to say I deeply feel that the elders of Israel, if they're not beginning to be involved with defending Utah, I don't think this is an exaggeration. I don't think they're doing their duty as an elder. But maybe we can circle back to that. You touched on the Ensign, and I wanted to say that we are told to get involved, and we're not told how, but that doesn't mean we've never been told how, because one of the things that we do in our Liberty Club, we have a little agenda that we go through every time we meet, And our agenda is we have an opening song and prayer. We sing the preamble. We read a scripture about liberty. We read a quote about liberty. And then we study briefly our foundation. And that is a key part that you can't take out. You can't, take the advice to be involved, as Ensign is telling us, and then expect to do it properly if you're not using the foundation that's already been given. We're not lost. We have a foundation. And if we don't use that and build on that, then we fall. So it's interesting to note that there are two foundations in the Book of Mormon, and one is it changes. One is a sandy foundation, and when the winds blow, it changes, and one doesn't change. And so these things that the Founding Fathers have given us and sealed their blood to give us, they should not be changed. They remain true, and that's what we need to be looking toward.
The wise man built his house upon a rock, and the wise men were our Founding Fathers. And we have a rock that our country was built upon. That's what I hear you saying. The thing is, we're all like, we don't like the rock, we like the sand, and at least we're being sort of convinced we like the sand by media and by public education. And
right.
I like that analogy, and that definitely fits.
Right. I'm gonna, if I could ask one thing of you, Enoch. Sure. I've got my daughter here with me. Hey, Leah, say hi.
Hi.
So she's 9, and I actually need her help with the 2-year-old, but I wanted to give her a little chance to speak about what she's doing in the Liberty Club.
Okay, wonderful.
Before she helps me with that, because she's an inspiration to everyone there. It's obvious when people come and meet, it's easy to hear her talk about liberty, and it's really inspiring. So, Haley, what are you doing right now?
Well, my mom told me last night that one of the Bundys, Clive and Bundy, the government has taken away his right to be a citizen. So I was inspired to write an article about that, so I started an article. And you'll be able to read that at the website, ldskeepingourcovenants.wordpress.com/liberty-activist. It's wordpress.com/liberty-activist-club. So, yeah, we tell them how we heard that. And we heard it from Clive and Bundy's wife, Carol Bundy. She has a little Facebook page.
So she had, she didn't say that he had lost his right to be a citizen, but it seems like it would amount to that, so it's something to look into, because she had stated that he lost his right to be considered in the general population. So that sounded like something we never would want to have happen to us, for sure. So
our government has gone way overboard in the amount of power that it gets. Now it's allowing itself to be able to take away our God-given rights. And if they can do that to Clive and Bundy, then they can do that to anyone.
That's right. Haley, you are wise beyond your years, and you clearly have a good mother, and she's doing a good thing.
And you clearly haven't been to public school.
Clearly.
God bless you, child.
Yeah, I haven't been to public school, but when
That's
my
why your
parents
brain is still functioning.
We went to private school.
Do you want to say anything else?
And our founding fathers knew history, and so they knew that once you have a ruler, that ruler sometimes will try to make themselves very powerful to make the citizens their slaves, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do you want to take him upstairs and you can come back? Okay.
Well,
and
ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to a homeschool mom and some of the neighborhood kids who also homeschool somewhere here in the valley. And this child understands freedom. How old is this little one?
9 years old. And they have a Liberty Activist Club. If you homeschool, even if you don't homeschool, get in touch with Amy. They are teaching good principles. You heard a great example here with Haley, who clearly knows what she's talking about. And they also do action. You wrote the governor. You called or you wrote you've been writing to people and you've been calling the governor. You said on your last blog post, you left a group message with the governor saying, "Don't listen to a king. Please, please
Absolutely.
do the right
So
thing."
when we meet for our club, we sing the preamble, we read a scripture about liberty, a quote about liberty, and we study our foundation, and then we read a current event. And we're grateful that we can always look to Defending Utah to know the facts and count on.
Okay, well, thanks, Amy. We've only got a few seconds, so let's tell people now how they can reach you if they want to learn more about what you're doing or see if they want to be involved.
Okay, sure. And then we go through a call to action, which is the most important part. You can contact me at 801-414-5279. And I would love to get anyone involved with us and expand this movement. And while we were waiting to come on the radio, we called briefly Loretta Lynch. That's what we'll be doing on Wednesday. And it took 5 seconds, and we pleaded with her to soften her heart for our political prisoners. And that's what Ammon Bundy is asking everyone to do right now. So they can call Loretta Lynch at 202-353-1555 and ask her to soften her heart and remember that we have a Bill of Rights to protect these men.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy, from the Liberty Activist Club. Give her a call, and we'll be right back right after the break. We are back. Jared Green and Enoch Moore, defendingutah.org on K-Talk Radio, AM 630, k-talk.com with the Liberty Lineup Naked Truth segment. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Patriot Mobile, and ask you to join our grassroots network and get our updates and alerts at libertylineup.com. That's libertylineup.com. Support the cause of liberty today. That's libertylineup.com. You can also like and share our Facebook page and our articles, and all the articles also on defendingutah.org and the Defending Utah Radio YouTube channel. It's called Defending Utah Radio, and it's on YouTube. Subscribe to that. And we just had a wonderful talk this last segment with Amy, who has taken it upon herself to educate the younger generation. And we heard a wonderful testimonial from a girl in her class, her daughter, who was only 9 years old. She understands the principles of liberty. She understood, and wow, just that was powerful. Was that powerful, Jared?
That was hopeful, Enoch. That was hopeful. I've never heard a 9-year-old talk like that. But, you know, I read essays about the founding, because I'm a product of the public school system. I didn't really learn anything until I was 21. But I guess I learned how to read. But my mom taught me how to read. I went to school with kids that couldn't read when they graduated. Out in California, full disclosure. But the founders were educated. Many of them received a classical education. Thomas Jefferson was educated by George Wythe, and a bunch of other founders were too. Henry Clay, Patrick Henry. George Wythe didn't have any children, so he kind of had his own homeschool group. And he taught the founders Latin, Greek. He taught them law. He was a lawyer. He was a country esquire. And so kids can learn Latin. They can learn Greek. They can learn the classics. They can learn how to think critically at a very young age if we allow them to.
Some of the school, my kid's charter school teaches Latin. So it's, you know, I chose it because they talked founding father when they presented themselves, when they sold themselves. They talked about the founding fathers. I even had one lady, because I asked her, I said, "There's cameras all over your school. What do you do with that camera footage?" And they said, "You know, it's just enclosed internal." And then she looks at me and says, "You know, we're very constitutional at this school." So they sold me on how constitutional they were, right? And I do agree that where they are now is better than the public schools that they would be going to otherwise. But again, in their end-of-year school program, there was false doctrine in this chants that they were singing. And teachers probably have no idea. Or some, I do know the director of the school, though, was a super liberal. And because I went to her directly. So anyway, I'm trying not to name names because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, because they're all good teachers and good people at the school. They have good intentions, but boy, the Department of Education that they serve does not have good intentions. No. And and they are fooled when they do their bidding. And the first thing you have to realize if you're a public school and you start appreciating the Constitution is that you're not enumerated under the. You have no. Anything you do that comes from the federal government, those programs are not enumerated. You shouldn't be doing them in the first place. So it's like such a big thing to even address those issues with the school. So intertwined.
Enoch, one caller off air during the break, sort of chastised us for dismissing the bathroom issue. She says it is an issue, and it is an issue because they're using it to change the culture, which we agreed upon.
I said that on the air,
yes.
Actually. I did say that part. But I think they're both right. They're using it to change our culture, but at the same time, they love distracting us with endless banter. So it's a real issue, and they'll use it forever to make us.
And social media is the worst. People, they share, they voice their outrage, and they pacify themselves into thinking they're really making a difference. People are arguing about trans and freak shows and bathrooms all over social media. Instead of the real issue, government has nothing to do with bathrooms. Bathrooms are private property. End of story, period. Ask the sheriff to enforce the law. Nullify, ignore it, move on with your life.
Target has the constitutional right to be freaky and weird about their bathrooms if they want to. Now, we can all choose to boycott them, which 2 million people, I believe, now have, well, at least 1 million, and I think they're going for 2 million. It's American AFA. I don't know what the organization was. I get their emails, and they've been leading this boycott, and they claim that their stocks have lost 10 billion, and 1 million people have signed their pledge, and they're going for 2 million. But we recognize their constitutional right on their own private property to do dumb things with their bathrooms and be weird about it. So it's not logical why Target would even do that and lose all that money, because this organization, AFA, went to Target and brought their petitions to them and said, look at your petition. Why don't you here's an alternative solution. Why don't you just make like a unisex bathroom, and then you have a boy and girl bathroom? That solves the problem. A very logical solution. You won't lose $10 billion in stocks. And they said, no, we're sticking with it. Now, why would they still do that unless they saw a purpose in what they were doing, unless executive management is in on this agenda to modify the culture?
Somebody got their orders handed down. From the CFR, from the somebody.
Who knows? Whatever.
Somebody got their orders handed down. Now, if you're a citizen in Utah that thinks this bathroom issue is a big deal, are you happy that your state legislature, led by Sean Reyes, is suing the Obama administration with your tax money? I'd like your opinion on that, please. 801-254-5855 if you would like to comment. Do you think it will do any good? After all, they give you Obamacare. We say we don't want it. Tough, you're getting it anyway. And the Republicans fund it, and they no impeachment, they don't stop anything. Do you think this is just theater by the Utah Republicans during an election year to make you feel good about re-electing them in November? We'll take your calls. 801-254-5855. I personally believe that. I believe everything they do in Washington is theater, because I've been reading history for 20 years, and I've been reading the news for equally a long time. Nothing changes under the sun. The method, the MO is the same year after year. During an election year, Chaffetz is going to come out and swear that he's going to get to the bottom of the latest scandal. He must be up to 16 or 17 by now. Never does anything except fund the tyranny. Michael Lee, the pudgy doughboy, the Captain Moroni with the paunch, everybody's phony hero, he doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything.
In fact, he passed the USA Freedom Act, which was Orwellian speak for extending the Patriot Act.
Yeah, well, most things are a lie. Everything's the opposite. Tell us about that.
The USA Freedom Act. We actually have an article, defendingutah.org. The USA Freedom Act makes Utah less free. And we kind of go over what the act does and how it's phony, and it's just more invasion of privacy. They've done a few administrative changes in how the data is collected on you and who does it and when. It's all just smoke and mirrors for doing the same thing at the end of the day. But they got a fancy new name called the Freedom Act instead of the Patriot Act, since everyone was sick of the Patriot Act.
And I believe Ted Cruz also backed that.
I don't know for sure, but it would make sense.
Much ado about nothing. It is an election year. You can go to sleep at night feeling good about your representative.
You know, I want to believe in Mike Lee. When I first learned about Mike Lee, I was looking at the constitutional, the Freedom Index that New American puts out, and I was seeing who votes for the Constitution 100% of the time. And this was like 2012 election season. I looked up Ron Paul first, and I'm like, sweet, Ron Paul is 100% Constitution. I'm like, is anybody else? And I'm looking through the whole list. Does anybody honor their oath all the time? And I saw Mike Lee 100%. I was like, whoa, Utah, sweet. That was the first time I heard of Mike Lee. I'm like, we've got a Ron Paul in Utah. I wanted to believe in him so bad. And many things he says, I believe in all the things he says. But, man, where is he now on the Patriots? And why did he do the USA Freedom Act? That was just the killer. And that was just so disheartening, let me just tell you.
Well, yeah, you think you have representation. You know your tax dollars are spent funding these people, and yet they never stand up for you. Nobody at the Utah Capitol cares about the citizens. When it's your turn to be in trouble, you cannot count on them. They are silent. And in my opinion, their silence is their consent. It is their complicity.
Why are they not nullifying the Department of Education? That's what I want to know. Do you know what?
They like the money, Enoch.
They like it, or this
and they're part of the club.
Let me tell you about what happens to your kids when you send them off to public school. Even a good school that mostly does good things. And they have all these... They keep a record of your child. That makes sense to a little bit. Every kid should have a file on a school, just like you'd have a file as an employee in a company or whatever, right? And there are federal laws to protect the privacy of the information that is in that file on your child. It makes sense. Okay, there should be a federal law to protect privacy because that data is private property about you and your family. But when you look at this law, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, okay, it does some good things, and then it does one creepy thing, and you've got to understand this, what they're doing in the public schools, and what our legislators are not stopping. In fact, they enable. So this FERPA law does not allow... it's a federal law that protects the privacy of student education records. The law applies to all schools that receive funds under an applicable program of the U.S. Department of Education. Generally, schools must have written permission from the parent or eligible student in order to release any information from a student's education record. So far, that sounds good. So I know that if I've never signed anything about my child is always private. However, FERPA allows schools to disclose those records without consent to the following parties or under the following conditions. School officials with a legitimate educational interest. I guess that's okay if a teacher looks up something in the record related to his class. There's some logic there. Other schools to which a student is transferring. That makes sense. Your records go with you. The church does that. Your records go to your new ward. Specified officials for audit or evaluation purposes. I guess if someone has to audit records to make sure proper record keeping, that sounds like it could be doable. And the next one seems okay. Appropriate parties in connection with financial aid to a student. So as long as those people then respect the privacy of the data they're getting, there's legitimate purposes. But check out this one. This is the clincher. Organizations conducting certain studies for or on behalf of the school. Certain studies. Okay, now you're getting into third-party companies that will data mine the records of public schools, including test results. The test results which are designed to measure behavior and their aptitude, their environmental attitude, things of this nature, and they're going to allow third parties to conduct studies on that data without your permission.
And there's nothing anyone's going to do about it. Public schools are laboratories, Enoch. We send our kids to the lab. They're studied, they're analyzed, they're exercised, and they're groomed to take their place.
That's the workforce training, the Marxist workforce training we talked about, and we talked about that before on the show a number of times. And even Jonathan Johnson has promised he will end Common Core. We had him on the show, and we tried to get down to the meat of the situation. Are you going to just nullify Common Core and do it? I want him to just keep his promise that everyone's so happy about. And at the end of the day, when I questioned him hard, what he really said was this, was sure, we don't like Common Core, but if a school does it on their own, without me, even though I tell them, oh, you shouldn't do it, but if they do it on their own, I'm not going to invade their free agency. And so the loophole is all the schools can still do Common Core, even under a Johnson administration who has quote unquote ended Common Core, because he's not going to get in their way if a local school decides it's their way. Well, I'll tell you, it's the constitutional duty of a governor who is sworn to uphold the 10th Amendment of the Constitution to nullify a federal program that is not enumerated.
How are they going to? How is any school going to participate in Common Core if the money doesn't go through the legislature and the governor's office?
You know,
when the governor JJ stops complying, the federal government's not going to give them any money.
The money will go through the Department of Education, go directly. I don't think they need the governor, the Utah legislature to approve federal funds going directly to local schools when they're already under the Department of Education.
Oh, gotcha.
See?
Well, it's up to you, good citizen. It's up to you to...
That's my concern. I just want JJ to hold to his promise that he's going to end Common Core. Is that too much to ask?
Take that call.
I want legislators and governors to keep their promises. Line 3, you are live on the air. Oh, he hung up right as we tried to pick him up. Call back.
Call back if you want.
And that's how we feel. We've got a minute to break.
I don't know what to do, Enoch. Does anybody have any experiences lately talking to your neighbors? Or is it like talking to the wall? I mean, the eyes glaze over and they look at you funny and maybe they report you to your bishop. That's only happened to me twice.
Okay, line 3 is calling back. We got a quick... okay, line 3, you're on the air. We've got 30 seconds. What do you got to say?
Well, I mean, if we got to the point of where the states had to, make their public schools or fund their public schools and got out of the federal funding game that we play, it's the money they like and the process that they go through of going back to Washington to lobby for the money.
Yep, and I say we don't need the money if we just cut out the federal mandates anyways.
So what I mean, couldn't you would probably see a wave of people start investing in bonds in their local schools.
Sure, I could see that happening, possibly.
And we could probably actually have the kids do fundraising things like we used to do when we were kids, but actually sell products that have like some volume to them.
Like a case of ammunition.
We're going to a break, though. Thanks for calling in. This is the Liberty Lineup Show, and we will be right back.
Door-to-door ammo sales. I like that. Don't tell the ATF. Well, if there's anybody that knows they can't trust the government, Enoch, it has to be the American Indian. I mean, some tribes have completely disappeared. California, the tribes don't even exist anymore. The line has been wiped out. The line has been wiped out. But they treat us all like Indians now, so I guess what goes around
We're
comes
all
around.
on the reservation now. That's right. And this is Enoch Moore and Jared Green, The Naked Truth, Liberty Lineup Radio Show, AM 630, k-talk.com. For more information, go to our Facebook page, The Liberty Lineup Radio Show. Like and share. And
everything is Orwellian in 2016.
And everything is Orwellian in 2016.
Everything, meaning it's the opposite of what you think it is. The Patriot Act is the most unpatriotic piece of legislation, which all your favorite Republicans sponsor and renew year after year. Oh, speaking of Indians and money for war, etc., during the last version of the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, every 2 years, according to the Constitution, money is allotted for the military. So they do honor, they never forget that part.
That they have to renew it every 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, that part of the Constitution.
So every 2 years, some Republican files the paperwork, and billions of dollars a week are spent blowing the daylights out of the rest of the planet. But in this last version of the NDAA, they took land away from the Apaches again. Down there in Arizona, Rio Tinto was eyeballing this Oak Flat I guess it's a sacred place. People say it's a campground, but they say it's a sacred place. But it's also filled with copper.
Rio Tinto has some creepy connections. Rio Tinto and the Sovereign Order of St. John, which is a Vatican-linked group. You'll find members of the leadership of Rio Tinto connected there. That's a whole other side story I guess we won't go into.
But
you reminded me of it.
Yes, but I just saw this article. In the last version of the NDAA, they gave away the Oak Flats, part of the San Carlos Apache Indian Reservation, for John McCain's defense buddies for Rio Tinto. It is owned by a subsidiary of Rio Tinto, and they're going to dig a 1.8-mile hole in the ground and, take out the copper and... So whatever, I mean, if there's any Indians out there that still believe in the government, wow, you've had longer to think about it than the average American here.
Right.
They don't care about you. And the treaties are always rewritable.
Yeah, we can learn something for how they've dealt with the natives. Line 3, we have a caller. Caller, you're live on the air on the Naked Truth. What's your name?
Yeah, Chris. Double dipping. I hope you don't mind.
Okay, Chris.
But at least for us white folks, our reservation's a lot bigger.
Yeah, that's
some
true.
Consolation.
It's bigger for now, anyway, until we have the mega cities and we're not allowed in the country anymore.
Yeah.
Good point,
Chris.
That.
Then I just wanted to say you were complaining about bad laws. Heck, if we didn't have bad laws, we'd have no laws at all. So be grateful for what we've got, right?
Be grateful for your bad laws, you ungrateful slave. That's what you're saying.
And then you mentioned Sean Reyes. I just wanted to comment on his lawsuit. You say it's not doing us any good. Well, sure it is. It's keeping bad policies being implemented by default until those cases are heard 125 years from now. They'll probably be heard in The Hague, though, by that time.
Probably.
Yeah.
But at least they'll be heard, right?
Yes.
By an unbiased, non-elected judiciary.
All right, thanks, Chris, for your thoughts on that.
All right.
Call back anytime. Double dip anytime.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, the head of again, just to bring this up again, Daniel Love has been promoted since his work at the Bundy Ranch. And before the Bundys, though, there was a guy named Dr. Red down in Blanding, Utah. And he belonged to a group that they would pick up rocks, arrowheads, whatever. He found a little shell, a little artifact on the ground, picked it up, put it in his pocket, committed a felony, and Daniel Love and the Utah FBI went after him. And they arrested a whole bunch of people, and they interrogated him in his garage. They abused him psychologically, physically, and he ended up taking his own life. And 2 others, this is getting very Clinton-esque. I'm starting to wonder. 3 people committed suicide over this artifacts rock raid down in Blanding, Utah. Dr. Red is the neighborhood doctor. He performed surgeries. He delivered the neighborhood's kids. Good guy. Good guy. I know his niece. We tried to get her on the show today, but this guy, Daniel Love, is ruthless.
And now they're putting him at the head of a new, totally unaccountable security agency with some kind of policing and spying powers.
The BLM now has a Stasi arm.
I mean,
intelligence.
I think they already had like some kind of BLM police. I don't know, wildlife police. They had something along those lines, and now it's now they have this intelligence agency that should just creep everybody out.
And he does have an office here in Salt Lake, I guess, by the way. But he works closely with the bureaucrats in D.C., bravely defending and protecting the wildlife. Protecting it so well, the ranchers like Stanton Gleave are struggling to make a living. One of the guys that Lavoie was talking to. See, where Stanton Gleave grew up, there used to be a lot more ranchers.
There used to be a lot more jobs. There used to be a lot more industry.
Yeah, they're
all gone.
Yeah, mining, lumber. People lived there, and they made a living off the land.
If you live there now, if you live in Paiute County now, you have to go somewhere else for money, or you can sort of be a rancher a little bit for now, but not for much longer if we don't help this cause.
The gas stations are gone that were there when he was a kid. The furniture store, the car dealership. People used to make a living in the United States of America. And I tried telling people, the Republicans don't want you to make a living. And they don't want to hear it. So they don't. Even though it's true.
The Utah Republicans in the legislature are socialist, most of them. Judging by their votes and judging by the programs they're pushing. I don't know all of them personally. Maybe some of them are dissenting quiet voices that never get heard. That's possible. And I haven't looked at them all. But overall, the Republican Utah legislature is implementing socialist policies. All you liberals who complain about Republican control in Utah should just be happy because they're a bunch of socialists. I don't understand that. You just look at what they're doing instead of what they're saying, and you'll say, oh, okay, I like this stuff.
Oh, you should. What you're saying is we should judge them by their works and not what they say.
Judge them by their works.
Talk is cheap. It has very dreadful consequences at times, but talk is cheap. You should judge your politicians by their works.
Here's Dan Love's new position. In this position, Dan will be responsible for a range of national-level program components, including facility, security, oversight, and coordination efforts, as well as the Bureau's law enforcement intelligence program. Why do you need a law enforcement intelligence program to,
well, maybe they're going to dress up
manage
like
bushes
ranchers, Enoch, and show up to meetings and try to get the inside scoop on what's going on.
They're going to have a COINTELPRO.
Yeah, they're going to show up in Wranglers and boots and try to work the masses up into something and set them up to fail, because that's what they do. So what do you want? Do you want a living in the United States of America? You're going to have to fight for it. You're going to have to earn it. President Clinton designated the Grand Staircase National Monument, if you remember. And they want to do 2 more, bigger than Yellowstone. So where's everybody going to work without resources? Caller, you are on the air.
Caller, we lost him again.
That might be Dan Love calling in. He doesn't like what we're saying, so he prank calls the station
and hangs up.
What else would the BLM Stasi be doing?
Well, even before they had this, they already had a habit of shooting cattle, and going that far.
Well, yes, some of the cows that were dug up in Bunkerville had holes in the tops of their heads. That means they were sniped from helicopters. And again, what were people started questioning this early when they were down there 2 years ago. What are the backhoes for? Well, we're going to dig a mass grave.
And then there's the Mary Bullock story, which I just learned about not too recently. And boy, that's a sad story. They just ran her through the ringer, took her cattle. She fought for years and years, and in the end of the day won, but then she was just worn out and had nothing left, and then they shot her cattle.
And without consequence.
That was after according to the article I read, that was after all the court battles were done, and what are you going to do then? She's already broke and worn out and tired, and she ended up dying probably just of a broken heart from trying to run her ranch.
The Bundys are facing a litany of federal felony charges, including conspiracy to impede a federal officer in the execution of his duties.
You know, if you're impeding a federal officer who's executing unconstitutional duties, then that's called law enforcement. That's not conspiracy.
That's what the sheriff should have been doing.
That's what the sheriff should have been doing.
But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it. If you'd want to reach out to Millard County Sheriff Robert Decker, we did have a little interview with Captain Jacobson. Nice guy. I would encourage you to call him. See what they have in mind. I mean, at some point they're going to have to do their job or they're not. And right now they're not, and we could sure use them.
Line 3, you're live on the air. What's your name?
This is Lisa. How are you guys doing today?
Hi, Lisa. We're doing great.
All right, here's my question for you. I actually have 2 questions. My first question is, are you going to post all this stuff you've been talking about, that lady that you just talked about, her cows being killed and farmed forever, and all the other things that you've been talking about, this guy named Love? Are you going to put all that on your website?
You know, today we've just been chatting about a lot of things, and
Yes,
we
the
can.
answer to that is yes, we need to. We will.
And
You will put it on there because I can't remember all of it, and I didn't have a pen to write it down.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm proud of you, and I thank you for your efforts. When I get a chance here, I'm going to try to join your little club there, Defending Utah, because I think it's
thanks.
very worthwhile.
Great.
Anyway, the other thing I wanted to ask you is, you were talking about Common Core.
Yep.
The tests that they've been giving the high school kids. I'm not sure about junior high or elementary school. I'm just not sure. But I know that Bill and Melinda Gates have been making tons of money off of the test because they own the company that that they make the test that sell to our states here in the state of
And they have
Utah,
all the data on
federal.
our kids for that FERPA Privacy Act. The exception is third parties that want to do research. They have access to it all.
See, I think that should be brought out every week how much money they're making, and it's in the millions of dollars. What I read at the Public Center for Integrity, I read it on their website,
Data
and it's
is
in the
the new
millions
gold.
of dollars.
Data is the new gold, and the data is our children, and
I bet you
hand
this.
them over.
And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I bet you that they have already got all the kids' DNA markers because they've probably swabbed all their cheeks, and they probably already have it.
Boy, that's probably true.
I mean, I don't know. I would love if a teacher
Here,
a brave
kids,
teacher would call
have
in
a
and tell us.
popsicle, and when you're done, we recycle, so put the popsicle sticks in this basket with your name on it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it one bit. They might even do technically like they do on TV on those crime shows. I wouldn't doubt it one bit. But I am so sick of Agenda 21, now Agenda 30. I don't know if you ever read Rosa Corey's book.
We got 10 seconds, Lisa.
The Green Mask. Have you ever read that?
I haven't read the book, but
Oh, you really should.
I understand the
'cause that
content
gives
of
you
it.
Everything. All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. And we are running out of time today.
Make sure you subscribe to Patriot Mobile. It's time to vote with your dollars as well as every election, for heaven's sakes. For heaven's sakes, please vote and make it count. And you might have to stand there and count the votes.
Vote your conscience. Vote for what is right, not for who's going to win. And our nation will be blessed, says Ezra Taft Benson. Special thanks to our show sponsor, Patriot Mobile. Tomorrow, we will have more with Hollywood and Sherilyn Eager.